All right, let's dive in. Day 2. Who's excited? Yay! Dan's excited. I'm just going to start talking and see how long it takes for people to pay attention. So today we're going to talk all about search, you know, the thing that we all get paid our jobs to do every single day. And therefore, we're now managing Vespa. Okay, I know we're all having fun, but not everything can be fun. Sometimes we have to work. Who said that indeed? Report them to me immediately.
Fun is not always fun.
Yeah, Rob, how's the server?
Oh man, the grind.
As a server.
No, sorry, I don't.
No, it is pretty fun. When I crash stuff and customers get mad, and you have to do that. That's cool.
Oh, that's just.
We love angry.
Day 2,
Transition.
scheduling. We'll have a guest for lunch, Sarah, one of our directors on the board. So some of you have met her, but she's in town because she needs to get her ukulele worked on. So,
Wow.
For what?
her ukulele? Yeah. And just to say hi and meet folks, have lunch with us. After lunch, we're going to do our risk assessment meeting. Usually that's just, I don't know, me, Brian, Drew, and Dan, and we talk about things that could potentially harm the company. It's a requirement for SOC 2, SOC 2. Happy to do that a little more transparently. Sometimes I have a personal motto that failure is always an option. I think it's just helpful to call it out, identify it, talk about it, and sometimes worrying about the potential for failure is more stressful than actually dealing with it. So that's part of the value of the risk assessment, and just to show outside parties that we're not blind to the factors that could harm us, and hence our customers. So that'll be after lunch. It is a requirement, so it's one of those hard schedule things. Other than that, I don't know that we have any other again, we can do a kind of a free-flowing afternoon.
There are votes, right, for sessions.
The cards that people put ideas on, go add a little hash mark for the ones you're interested in, and that'll tell us in the afternoon instead of hey, which and when. We can just pick one and go for it. And yeah, what else? ABGB for dinner tonight. Maybe we try and do a little earlier. It was 6:30 was impossible for Alex. He was so tired last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of outdoor tables. So. Oh really? Oh that.
It's gonna be chilly again.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that, anyone else have any other things that we need to announce for the schedule of the day?
I am gonna meet Dax at 1 o'clock at Daniel's
Right.
house.
That's right.
And so we get the lock thing issued.
I switched the batteries out this morning, so it's working.
There was that a problem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
We had a lot of back and forth with the property management last night, so.
Oh, sorry, I just fixed
No,
it.
that's okay. I mean, I figured I didn't
This is
get a
like
phone
Dan.
call, what the, so.
I'm
Classic
kinda
Danny. Sorry, I just fixed it.
Okay.
Um,
I appreciate that.
We all do. Yeah, so we are doing a little thing at Daniel House. Brian, Dan, and me. They're gonna put our faces in front of a camera to put on the website. I say ours. It's supposed to be me, but I'm really gonna try and pull it.
Thank you for sharing. I did not know.
Wait, that is today, right? It's today.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you do have to be there at 3.
I have to be there.
If you want any prep time right here.
Yeah, right.
What are we talking? Oh, we'll talk
That's the
about
prep
it.
time part.
I didn't know this.
No, I think I did.
We're talking about search. That's what we'll do today. Yesterday, I really loved our session, just how we work together, culture, all that stuff. I love to popcorn around the room and hear what were some aha moments from yesterday from people, or what are some reflections on that, on how things went yesterday, what we feel like we need to work on. I don't know, what are some thoughts on yesterday to sort of tie that up in our brains and before we move on to more technical things. Volunteers?
I was happy to see how many things got put up or questions came up. That was interesting.
Yeah, a lot of stuff went up. You all see I took the liberty of transferring all the stickies. I didn't want to like just take them down. I also took a pass at kind of just moving stuff around based on my understanding of where things fit. Yesterday we did ask like what are some of the cross-team needs or whatever, and so, but there are also a good handful of cars that are just like, here are things that I do, that I feel responsible for, and I think those are also fair and fine. I filled in a few of those as well just this morning to give a little bit more complete of a picture, but if you want to take some time this afternoon to sort of stare at this for a little while, that's the nice thing about whiteboards, you just kind of step back and move things around, put in other sticky notes. Like, we'll talk about this a little more tomorrow in terms of boulders that we're going to break. One of my biggest goals for the next couple of months is to really have great documentation for all of these things, like good checklists where we need them. You know, what are the inputs to a process? What are the outputs? Like, what are the points of coordination? Like, I think this is like the time to get all that stuff captured, and that's going to be a project that I'm going to step up and own. So any thinking you do about this whiteboard over here and moving around like will be very valuable to me, just like getting stuff out so I know what to pull the thread on. Liam.
What's that square over there?
I'm glad you asked. There's some stuff here that definitely does not fit in any of these boxes, and so this is my executive square. You know, what is the vision of the company? How do you deal with prioritization? How do you deal with firing customers was one. I put a note in here for hiring and firing in the team. So these are things that wouldn't fall under any of these kind of functional groups necessarily. But the other thing we noticed yesterday is there are definitely some functions that are not present here that will get some more showing in the future. Like sales and marketing really should be its own thing. We don't have a lot of marketing in the room. You know, like, so there's still some, this is not the final form of OMC. This is where we're at today and the things we need to solve today, but there will be a little more evolving. And yeah, so that's just my square for things that I consider not to be accountable to anyone else on this side of the board, but more accountable to me. Which, having said that, I'll probably move that now to like make room for the presentation we're about to give. I say presentation, it's going to be more of like a facilitated conversation. Anyone else want to like share thoughts on yesterday? Volunteer, or I will volunteer. Just kidding. Allie, I know you have thoughts. Come on, you know I'm going to pick on you.
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to talk about values and principles. I think sometimes in some companies it feels a little bit like ridiculous because it's like, well, whatever, we can all say values and principles, but like, what does that actually mean? Does everyone in the room actually believe in that stuff? And so here we were talking about like leader, follower. And in the leader follower system, you know, the top says here are our values, and then everyone else is like, okay, sure, whatever, moving on. But like, it's not gonna work unless we all like, if there's something in the team that like responds to that. It's like, yeah, I like that. I am excited about these things. Like, I want to participate in that. And so I'm just thinking about like where our team is right now and how I'm just seeing a lot of like excitement and momentum, and there's just not a lot of friction right now, like there has been in the past. So it's just really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out.
Thanks, yeah. I was definitely getting that feeling yesterday too, like a lot of great participation showing up, like everyone had really good things to throw into the mix, and that was super cool.
It's encouraging.
It's super encouraging, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yesterday went really well because you all showed up. Like, I'm just here writing things on whiteboards. Give me a second while I share this YouTube link with our colleagues. I just realized I didn't post that on the slide. Anyone else have thoughts on yesterday?
I'm gonna steal something from Rob. Sorry, Rob. But like, as we're separating all of these kind of concerns out, it really struck me. Rob, I think, said it better than me. That like, some of these things are some of the items on the board are things that individuals dealt with, and we've separated them out. Although one person was doing many of these things from all four of the areas, so like one person was doing multiple things from each of those. So it's not just like dividing out tasks, it's the additional challenge of like, it is one person is now letting go of things that they've done, and I think that will present a particular challenge. And I think it was Rob's observation that like really hit to me that it's almost more personal for people that are not new, that have been here for a long time. They're like releasing things that they've done historically, and I can see that there's probably like a lot of trust that goes along with that. I mean, they did it, they know that they can do it well, but now they have to hand it off to new people. So I think we have to be really aware of that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I mean, it really touches on one of the core parts of our story, which, having been bootstrapped, starting with 2 people doing everything. I mean, I have literally done just about every single thing in this business, and like, for the stage we're at, and as much as we grow, and it's literally as helpful and as skilled as everyone is here, the only way we get help is by learning to like let go. I've got a great blog article I can link into the time called "Giving Away Your Legos." Like, giving away your toys, the things you're having fun and creating and building with, and showing other people how to use them and how to play with them and how to like share, is like such an important skill. And I mean, it is work too. It's like when it's just one person wearing a lot of hats, you don't have to coordinate with other people. And so when you have to coordinate with other people, you're doing the work plus you're doing the work of coordinating. And that's a lot of what I'm reaching for with identifying where that work happens and writing it down, and like, so both parties get the opportunity to like share, here's what I need in order to help you, and or likewise, here's what I need to see from you in order to trust that I can hand off the thing and it will be done well. So it's a big part of the spirit of this exercise, is facilitating, because I guarantee you all, like, our jobs a year from now are not going to be the same as our jobs today. We may get to a point where we can just sort of like hunker down and like do the same thing over and over again. I'm not sure how many of us actually want that kind of a job, but I'm not going to, denigrate it for a certain way of working. That's fine, but that's just not really even the state of company we are, and doing that intentionally is very much a theme for us this year. So, apropos that Rob would point that out, because Rob has given away a lot of Legos over the years.
Yeah.
And kind of filled a lot of needs.
It's more like I thrown them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo caught a bunch. Been great.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's funny that Matt brought that up, because that wasn't really what I was thinking when I was talking about that yesterday. But it is true. I mean, like, that's the thing that's going on. So.
The other nice thing about group communication is sometimes the things people hear are not the things we're necessarily trying to say, but that was a good thing to hear.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
It's on.
All right. Good talk. All right, break.
I'm gonna get some water.
All right, Dan, should we explain all the things there are to explain about search?
All of them, or most of them, or some of them?
Everything
Some of
we
them.
can explain.
So this is all gonna be
Expand it out.
video
I
Yeah.
suppose.
online.
Yeah, it's all
I think so.
It's all being streamed right now. So if
That'll
anyone,
make my lesson much easier. I'm giving a lesson with touring students in the next month or so on search and search engines. So I'll just copy all sections.
That's totally fine.
All right. If y'all haven't yet, there's two really good books that I recommend about search. One of them is Relevant Search. The other might be in my office here. There's a couple books about search. This is a really good one. It's an actual like grad level textbook that has really great has a couple of good paradigms in it. Just the text is free online too, and then the Relevant Search chapter 1 is free online. I think everyone should read that chapter 1 at least, and anyone who's like answering questions to customers should read the whole book. That's it's just like a primer on if you were an engineer hired into an organization to build search stuff, i.e. one of our core user personas, you would read Relevant Search and you would do the things that it says. So really good to like just point that out. Like I have learned a lot from these books. None of my knowledge is like this is there's a lot of shoulders of giants to stand on in the space of search, and like our job is largely like identifying how to navigate that and how to ask the right questions. Which is a great segue because that's what search is all about, asking questions. So that particular textbook had a good diagram in it of what search is about. So you have, we'll call them users, someone who's going to go do a search. Why do they need to do a search? They have a task they need to accomplish. Going to Google, I need to know how many square miles is Alaska? I don't know. I have a task I want to accomplish because I want to cheat at a bar trivia game. I don't know. But part of that task is you need to like turn your task into a question. You're trying to get closer to the fulfillment of a thing, and that process is called the query. Like, how do you express your intent to move toward an outcome? Expressing that intent can happen in a lot of ways. This is, the classic example is you type in a search box. But these days we have Siri and Alexa and Google, so the kind of voice search. We have, you just go to youtube.com and that's a search, or to offerup.com and it's a search because you're expressing, I want to buy some sort of second-hand thing in my area, the homepage of OfferUp, or I want to waste 2 hours of my life on some rabbit hole of content, which is YouTube. Twitter, yes, alas, it used to be. Anyway, we'll get into this stuff later. Formulate the query. From here, you see results. Not always the results that you think. And these results can come in a lot of forms. As you're typing, maybe, you could see auto-completion. But you just run the query. You're on Amazon, you run a search. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm going to describe the thing. And you get a page of results. And you see some stuff on that page. And then what you do from there is you didn't quite find what you want. You're going to reformulate. The word is refine. I'm going to try and use the jargon that exists in the world so that we can, next year when we all go to Haystack, we're not going to be completely lost by the sheer amount of jargon that we hear in number here.
It's a search complex for nerds.
Super nerds.
I mean,
And
it's true.
this forms a loop, and we all kind of know this. Like, we're on Google, and you're like, I'm good at Google typically means I'm adding and removing keywords, maybe I'm using some operators, I'm kind of like drilling down to get where I'm trying to get.
I think that gender clothing, very specific.
And eventually you accomplish your task. Engage or convert. And you're done. And so this is kind of the core interaction of search. This is what every search use case is driven off of a loop, like a workflow like this.
similar cases? Do our customers go through something like this when they're like thinking about how they
I mean,
relevancy and stuff? Do they think
If
in
they
this
read
way?
that book, maybe, yeah, probably.
I mean, they do think like this, but maybe not exactly like this, but they ultimately know that they take the user's input and then give the user output that matches the data that they have.
The calls I've been in, I felt like most of them at that level have that perception of it.
I like this as a starting point because, like, I think and this showed up yesterday. Like, we have all this like curiosity of what, not just what our customers are doing, but what they're trying to do for their end users. And I think that like being anchored on the consumer, the end user, even above our customer, is like such a strong value of our team as well. Like, it's what gives us permission to say no to a customer. Like, no, I don't think that's what's good for your customer. Like, we're here to help you achieve this goal, and we're gonna work towards that. Like, so in all of our thinking, whether it's about product or how we deliver our service at enterprise, like, it's just so helpful to always start by being anchored on what the user needs, what they're trying to accomplish, the work that they go through, what it looks like when they're successful, and everything else is like secondary to that. If people could accomplish their tasks without using a search engine, they would, and great, we wouldn't have the pain, and we wouldn't have this business, and we'd be working on some other interesting problems, right? But it just so happens that like this is a pretty fundamental loop. Like, I need to do a thing, I need to find the thing, some information, and move that forward. And so like this is search. This is the core thing our business is doing for people.
It's in real life too. Every time my kid puts the remote somewhere, I have to go, I need the remote. And I have to go look in every room and search, and I finally find it and I achieve my task. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like very fundamental human like driven stuff here. I'm gonna like expand out from this a little bit and show like what is the work that goes into making this possible. I think in order to show results, what you feed into that is the technical term is a corpus, a body that you are searching within. Excuse me. We start with a corpus. In fact, we have a business over here or some other like entity that wants to facilitate the accomplishing of a task, usually in a way that they can make profit off of it, so they can pay us to help them. So they also have some sort of goals or objectives or mission or whatever. Within that, they control some body of data, offer up as a marketplace of used goods. You know, that's where this is coming from. YouTube is all these videos and larger platforms like YouTube and Google, like part of that corpus is all the queries that a large fraction of humanity has been running, which is an interesting thing that we'll maybe touch on later. But we turn that stuff and we build an index, and the results come from the query and the index. And so, you know, one of the significant parts of making this possible is doing the work to build this. And this is another thing that I tell customers a lot when I talk to them. A search engine is kind of a misnomer because it's not about the search so much as it is about building an index. Like, building the index makes the rest of this possible. This is sort of like the demand for a solution, and this is what supplies the solution. And this is where things kind of meet in the middle to do stuff for users and to go through their loop and eventually accomplish their goal.
You're wearing the right shirt for this situation, by the way.
No, I was very happy to see it. I need one of those.
We really need to do a chapter 2 of this project.
I know.
And 3 and 4 and 5.
I know.
Someday.
Maybe on the 10th year anniversary of it.
Of Story of Search, yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Chapter
George
2.
R. R. Martin.
10 more.
Yeah.
10 more years.
Oh man, when did we ship this thing? 2017, I think.
Dude, so long ago.
Before
We've seen
We've
Rev.
seen Revolution.
Yeah. Vegas, baby. Anyway, So far, so good?
Yeah.
I'm starting pretty abstract. It's going to give us kind of. My goal today is not to teach you everything about search. It's really to kind of put a bunch of ideas out there, a bunch of like landmarks in the landscape, so we can navigate by and ask questions later too. So, did you kind of raise your hand? And
I
then,
have a question.
yeah.
The index is created from the corpus. Does the index ever affect the corpus, or the corpus is its own totally separate abstraction? Or the index is an abstraction?
The index is a representation of what's in the corpus. I mean, and so like the index at the back of a book is a good example. It's not obviously the corpus informs the index. The index tells you where in the content in the corpus you want to look for the thing you care about. So there are other things that affect that index, and so I think as people are running queries and refinements here, this is actually a really great source of data about what they need. This whole loop is called a refinement loop. So there's like a lot of data that happens in here, and all of that can kind of go back into informing the index.
Informing how the index is done,
Yeah.
right?
So like one simple way of representing that is like if you have all these query logs and you have what people click on for every query, then you are able to index that as well. And so when another query happens, you're searching not only the corpus, but you're searching all other queries that are similar to this query and the thing that eventually got clicked on, which is just kind of a different way of building up a mapping from this to this, which is what that is. This is
It's
a
more
mapping
about
from
ordering
this to
of it.
this.
Mhm.
It's more about the ordering of it, but yeah.
Yeah,
But,
so like the
to-
corpus
we'll get to
gets
relevance.
organized. The
Yeah.
corpus gets organized in the index in a certain way.
It's really restructuring the data.
The interesting and subtle thing about that is the index is not always just purely terms or slicing and dicing the corpus. Like this is how we are organizing our data in order to facilitate engagement. And so like that can be more things than just the data and the documents. And that's where things get really interesting in search land.
I have another question. The index indexes everything that's in the corpus?
It's everything you need in order to facilitate engagement. So it's not everything in the corpus. And there's a long, and so like this is exactly where like the work comes in. It's like how do you organize this in a way to facilitate what the user needs to do? And that is not on this diagram. Like that is the work of our customers. That is the work of a search engineer, is understanding how do you take this and build this? How do you take all this and make that even better? And how do you facilitate this to that?
So there's like a hierarchy of like how well like a search engineer can approach this.
That's an interesting idea.
Or like
We'll come back to that.
different workflows.
Yeah. Lisa.
You said it's everything you need to know. Who is making that decision and filtering?
That's a good question.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, oh, you have everything you need. It's like, do I?
Right?
So where's
How do we know that that the users are accomplishing their tasks is kind of that question. Like, well, so that's the thing is like, how do we know the index is doing its job? Well, we know because users are accomplishing their tasks. Another part of a search engineer's job is how do we collect that information from users? Definitely, I mean, this came up in Slack just a few days ago when Joel was asking questions about Reddit and Google and stuff. And this is great. You guys are really painting the landscape of the work of a search engineer. There's a lot of ways to do that. So you can count how many times did this happen. So like this is quantitative analysis of search activity. How many clicks and engagements, how many products got added to shopping carts.
How much time spent on
How much time was spent, how many users signed up as a product of going through that.
What position was the thing?
That sort of has some bias in it, and as you really get into this stuff, it's like, well, you're only seeing engagement from people who successfully survived any flaws in this process. Like maybe you didn't have the right information in your index. So sometimes it's actually just going back up to the top, surveying people, asking them like, hey, like, did you accomplish what you needed? So you'll see all the time like little surveys, like, did you get the search results that you needed? It can be tricky to find signals from people who would have gotten here but didn't quite make it. And that's a whole field of study and a whole field is understanding what's going on up here and where people fail to make it all the way through. And so that's information that goes over here. So it is very much a multidisciplinary question within an organization. How does this get built? And the sad thing about that, in my opinion, is, especially within our customers, we have a lot of startups and small businesses. It's like you have one person who's sort of building the product, this thing, and figuring out how to write queries and figuring out how to build an index, and who's sort of iterating on the mission of the business. And so like we have a lot of generalists in our customer bases, and even our enterprise customers, you see they're under-resourced. Like you have a person doing search, maybe a small team. A very well-resourced enterprise probably isn't coming to us because they have entire teams for each one of these things and are spending millions of dollars. I mean, even like OfferUp has
on that.
different teams for different parts of these puzzles. So
I have maybe a recommendation for just like how we think about this conceptually and where we apply this. Like, maybe we should not talk about things like Google and other search giants because this is not a good representation of what they're doing. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of is, but not really.
Totally.
If we put it in the context of like say, like a news site or like say like a blog that has 50,000 posts or like e-commerce would be something really good, but I wouldn't necessarily put it into terms of like Google because I mean they have technology that nobody else has.
absolutely.
They do, and that's on all those lines. That's where Google's special sauce is. But they still have this fundamentally same general principle too, at the same time.
Yeah, but we're not gonna. That's a great point because like, I mean, well, I want to touch on that for 1 second. So that's totally valid. Where it's worth being aware of some of that is, it's like we're never going to be Google. We're never going to be doing like internet search. I mean, maybe if we can find someone who's doing an internet search engine, like let's go close DuckDuckGo or something and run there. But that's a whole different class of problem. And like the overwhelming majority of our customers they have some special sauce in their data. There's some marketplace, some library, some knowledge base, some community, and they want to let people search through that. They're not doing Google levels of problems. And the interesting gotcha there, though, is people go through these loops all the time, like on searching Google on my phone, talking to Siri, going to Amazon.com, going to eBay. Do people say eBay?
Yes.
Whatever. They're trained in how to do this sort of stuff by the giants. And so everyone's expectations are like way up here because Google is so good and so pervasive, because Airbnb is so good. And so like that's where people's expectations get set. And that's kind of a good thing for us because like everyone wants to keep making their stuff better, and in some ways we have this kind of race for the top, and I think it's really cool, and it's good for people using software that like everyone's trying to make their search better. But that's a lot of work, and so you really need to lean hard on experts to try to get there.
Can you like, sorry, go ahead. Could you like maybe give us an understanding of like where Google and Airbnb is versus like the common like B2C company that has search? Like what's the difference in level of work to get to like a big, just to like sort of frame it? Like what's the?
They like have multiple teams like that just to solve their search.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like
I mean,
Put it
places
in
like
brass
Google
tacks.
are writing papers written by PhD teams
Exactly.
about stuff that's never been done before.
Exactly.
They're spending millions of dollars training models
Yes.
that understand the structures of human languages in not just English but any number of languages to like break apart what a query is and identify like what's being asked and what is the intent. So like that's some of the stuff that Google does. I mean, that's not every one of their searches.
But it's also specific to you. They collect so much telemetry on you and all the websites you visit.
They go almost psychological, like, or sociological
Right,
in the way they approach you as a user.
It's just interesting that like our customers, users are getting trained to expect
going back to Matt's point, it's a lot easier to search 50,000 documents than it
It's
is.
very true.
Yeah.
The entire internet.
What-
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's the most complex customer would be interested in talking to? Like, at what point do we be like, hey, you're kind of outside our league?
Well, Google's outside our league.
I'm just trying to get
No,
like,
but a customer that would come to us.
like, is eBay outside of our league? Is Etsy? I don't know. Is,
No, I don't think any app that is searching like their app.
GitHub's out of our league, at least for their code search. They just made their own search engine for code search. We run a few of their smaller internal use cases, or their code search for Atom. Shopify has some pretty massive e-commerce needs. Reddit's borderline. I really would like to get in with Reddit. They have a pretty complex use case that doesn't fit Lucene always very well, but they're trying their best to make it work, and they're spending a lot of money on it. Amazon, I mean,
Lucene.
they're Lucene. They're not even Solar or Elasticsearch. They have their own Lucene-based thing, and some of these folks are out of our league because they can, hire Lucene contributors, and the people they have working for them are the best in the world. And not to say that we're not the best in the world at the thing that we do, but they're already spending more money than we earn on this problem, and. But technologically, I don't know if there's anything they're doing that we couldn't.
But Craigslist, for example, is something we could clearly
Definitely.
We don't run Sphinx, but
shop like that.
Yeah,
Where
but
they're selling.
the need of it, the functionality of it, I think. We could do Amazon's search. I could give you a short list of people whom we would hire away from Amazon to come and just take that job in house over here. Yeah. We'll think about that for sure, and we're going to draw a new diagram in a minute here that will help us expand even further and ask those types of questions and show where Google is operating versus where, I don't know, Red Bull's TV is operating.
Leo, you had a question.
Yeah, so kind of going back to the user task and the engagement cycle,
Mm-hmm.
with their enterprise accounts, I have the impression that that sort of engagement is all decided through revenue base. So did they find the item they want to buy and buy it off the marketplace or things like that? Is there anything other than that shows up in enterprise account that I'm not aware of, that isn't based off of revenue?
I can give you an example of how OfferUp tracks engagement. So, the OfferUp application, you open it on your phone or you open the web browser and you search for couch. And you see a couch that you like, and you click on it and you ask the user if it's still available, and that user responds back. That two-way transaction is considered engagement. That's how OfferUp tracks it. That's to them that they found the right thing, and that there's something happening in the application. Because they can't always track things like revenue, because the transaction actually may occur out of band. The person drives there, picks it up, pays in cash. So that's one way they do it.
There's another example. What's the company that has all of the legal cases? LexisNexis. So I imagine they're tracking engagement kind of differently because there's nothing to check out.
Yeah.
It's a subscription base, so it's probably has more to do like we don't know, but that's another example that doesn't have to do with checking out as a cart. Is an engagement. It's something else because they're subscription based.
I think it's an interesting question and an interesting point because, again, all of this is to facilitate the user accomplishing their task, and
there's money to be made somewhere.
there is money to be made.
For the company that pay us, it has to translate into we're making money off.
Tracking engagement and conversion is more of a business function because that's what they're using to verify that their changes to search are making an improvement. Like OfferUp has a goal of 2022 increase engagement by 3%. And they're going to try to do that through relevancy. Right? So the engagement tracking and the quantization of it is really about measurements of your own quality of search to determine how you should change it.
I want to drill on this just a little bit more too. I have two examples, but like imagine you're running a search on a site and every result that you see is an advertisement. What do you think about the results?
Poo-poo.
If they're not the correct result.
You don't trust them, right? You think that some other agenda is being served. Like this isn't useful to me. Like why am I just searching paid catalog? So that's there's a fine balance when businesses or organizations are tuning their index for their bottom line rather than for the user's bottom line of doing the thing they need to do. It's like that's one of the interesting tensions of tuning a search engine is like how much are we biasing for this? How much are we biasing for that? And when you go too far towards this, you can compromise this and you just lose users and people stop trusting the results and people stop using your service. And so Google
now, it's just like ads all
Google
the time.
is
Used to not be.
the whole top of the screen is ads these days, and people are complaining a lot about that. And it's actually starting to open up a market for people using alternative search engines like DuckDuckGo and others. So that's kind of a perpetual challenge. You need to make money, but I think my advice to and anyone who's like an expert in this stuff is like, don't optimize for your revenue. Like optimize for the user experience and trust that revenue will come from there. And like, we'll watch talks from Google relevancy engineers and they say, my job is not to worry about ad revenue. My job is to worry about how to make better results. Now,
But I get paid from ad revenue.
they get paid from ad revenue though, so
Yeah.
someone's gonna maybe step in that.
Yeah, but again, Google's out of the league.
But plenty of our customers might try to take that to heart as well. Like, well, I'm just gonna boost by profitability. And you can make some short-term bucks. Drew's got some great stories of where that happens in like the e-commerce industries he's come from.
The tune of $50,000 more a month.
Yeah.
We had 2 pairs of gloves. They were both $5 conceptually. They both had 5 stars. We made 20 cents on one pair. We made 10 cents on the other pair. The 10-cent one was ranking higher. We were selling more of those. We added a 0.001 boost to the 20-cent pair. Flipped the order. So it was instead of 1-2, it became 2-1. $50,000 a month.
So it's real, and like you could go deeper down that rabbit hole. I think it's fine to put those kinds of signals in the ranking, and if it's a tiebreaker, sure, why not? Like that feels legit to me. But it's a bit of a slippery slope.
Well, you can look at the American Airlines case. That was an actual Supreme Court case where American Airlines invented one of the first search engines that travel agents had, and I'm always blanking on the name of it, but it's this massive COBOL system for finding plane flights. And they gave it to everybody, so all the airplanes were using it, but the travel agents, they figured out very quickly, we're talking like in the 60s, were just taking the first hit and selling that to the customer. They weren't even giving the customer multiple options. American Airlines is like, shit, the first one's always selling? Well, the first hit is now going to always be an American Airlines flight.
Oy.
And eventually not Trans Am, but everybody figured out like what was going on, and they took it to court, and they had to sell off that part of the business. They had to pay huge fines, all from early search ranking.
Love it, shenanigans.
Is
Yeah.
there something where an airline increased flights if you were searching from an Apple device? Like rating on
Maybe.
Places, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending on
Because they knew that
Bucketing.
you'd be able to pay for it.
like, oh, you've got more money.
Yeah, you got an Apple
I
device.
don't know about
Interesting. So I mean, I think, and I have a pretty these stories come up all the time, and if you watch, I occasionally see some Twitter thread where people are blowing up on how you can't trust some search engine's results, and I think it's a really important principle that people don't talk about is this sort of I won't say it's the ethics of search. I think this can be done unethically, but I think even in good faith, it's you can't, you really have to be careful to preserve the user's trust that the system is serving their needs.
It's not rigged.
Yet that it's not rigged. And people talk about the algorithm and gaming the algorithm, like on YouTube or on Reddit or on And like a lot of our customers, to draw the contrast, like maybe are not so sophisticated that they're playing those kinds of games, but sometimes when you're under-resourced, you're kind of looking for that one weird trick that's going to make a bunch of money. And I have had conversations where I have to remind people, like, just build quality, build for like trust from the users. Don't worry about gaming this thing to like drive a bunch of profits, because you're just going to compromise yourself in the long term.
From a sales standpoint in enterprise, do people come and say, I want to change search to improve my revenue? Like, is that one of the things that gets brought up?
I
As
think
the,
people are speaking that directly about it. It's
Seems like offer up a little bit.
Yep, offer up once too. I mean,
But it's
so
taken us years to get there with them.
a lot of these
Sales.
customers they're not actually making revenue off search. Search is a component of what already gives the revenue. So they make money off of giving people access to a system, and search is a function of that system that their
Okay.
customers want. It's not like so
it's
the
not the
results-
driving.
Right. It's like Widen, for instance, customers sign up and it's like an asset management platform and they upload all their own assets. So they just get to search their own stuff. So there's no revenue to be made there, right? It's their own data. So there's a lot of customers we have that just aren't e-commerce, or the results aren't going to ultimately turn into some sort of
Direct.
conversion. Yeah. So it depends on what the customer's doing with search. But at the end of the day.
Very good, lively
Most of our
discussion.
customers don't, especially in the sales cycle, they're kind of like, is my search gonna go down? Is like their like existential threat, not how are we driving business value from search. Like, they don't even,
So they need the reliability rather than the just like.
Depends on the customer. Like, so Offer's
Yeah.
all about relevancy this year. So that's what we're helping them do.
but 5 years ago,
It was all stability,
Yeah.
and then performance, and then cost.
So we start most of the time with stability, and then if we get them the stability, we can work on refining.
it creates the
that.
luxury for them to actually think about
Think
some of
about-
these more complex.
We have a whole hierarchy.
Yeah.
Stability, performance, relevance, that order. Like, without stability, performance and relevance don't matter. Without performance, relevance doesn't matter because it takes 20 seconds to search. People are going to give up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fascinating.
Okay. Chapter 2. Gonna zoom out even a little further.
It's on the screen. For the cleaning thing.
hate these erasers.
It's over on this board.
It's interesting because we work with their search team and HBO as well, but a lot of customers, it's not a search team, we're working with like DevOps teams.
Yeah.
And so we don't even like get into this conversation.
Well, like, so part of that, we were talking about how you track engagement. A lot of customers don't track engagement.
Yeah.
The results are good enough for them. The defaults are good enough for them.
They just have to have it.
Yeah, and they also just want the staff to really kind of track engagement and run models on that to determine how to, then turn around and impact the index so that results are changing.
I guess it's really just the story of the technology too, like because Solar and Elasticsearch are hard to run. So
Yes.
like that's what our business started from, is like a DevOps optimization thing. It's like a value chain thing.
But that's changing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
So now we're moving away a little bit from the stability part of things and more into the,
We're building on top of it.
yeah. That's cool. Those are a little small to read, so you have to
I
read
know.
out loud.
I'm gonna need space, and I'm gonna need to move these around a little bit as we talk.
Yeah. They're really coming out. Oh really?
Am I the only one with a sound machine on my room?
Oh, brilliant.
You want one? We've got plenty at home.
I'm just like the repetitive bird noise, the bane of my
I love the Texas bird.
I like birds.
I love birds too.
Especially
especially the Texas birds at grackles.
Maddie, why do you hate
They
birds
have
so
a
much?
they have a red that's like literally this big. You can hear it for like
I
a
don't
mile.
use this,
It's
but
bonkers.
in the morning,
Yeah, use it.
Yeah.
in the morning,
Do you use it?
They're saying, Maddie, wake
sounds
up.
like my
Maddie,
alarm.
wake up.
Yeah,
I think really know if you.
I put
Wait, what's
stuff
this?
in and do and like.
Just like what are we
That,
gonna
like,
touch on here? So I'm building out
but it just
the value chain of
I did
stuff.
see it.
Because we're gonna talk about stability, right? What are all the things we didn't even touch on the mechanics of running anything. I want to touch on the workflows of making the index better, of
Yeah.
designing, expressing.
You were here in October,
Like
and their
the
last.
sound machine noise that we have,
Yeah, we haven't really
kind of
had
like
anything
kind of hurt
since
your ears.
Oh no, yeah, I've never
This
been
one
here.
is like the more natural sound.
I feel like
These are
I've
things we're gonna have to
noticed
talk about.
recently
I'm gonna
it's
try to
been
Check it out.
more
There's low and high.
lately.
ranking, matching.
Yeah, matching versus ranking for interesting candidate set.
Analysis.
Really? We have like a ton of blue jays around our house that are there year round. They haven't really been very vocal until recently.
I grew up with them, we right out my bedroom window. So it's not just, it just brings us some childhood traumas.
We're kind of like surrounded by these really ancient oak trees in our house. And like literally there are boughs that
What are expat features that are interesting?
Just put secure.
So you can literally just see them right there.
Because we have multiple
There's a
layers,
family of dogs that always they'll share that.
which might be useful to talk about a little bit.
That's only for you.
Our bedroom window. So it's like every morning in the summer.
Backups.
For me, like when I go to sleep, I just have my home
Disaster
playing
I think it would be interesting.
Oh, that sounds nice.
that just drowns out
Like
Almost
I had
noise.
start playing
Do you have high availability? Is that something we're gonna talk about?
Well,
No,
The
that,
word-
no, that was for my kids.
Oh, okay.
They would just, every time they would make
replication,
anything,
high availability, load balancing.
the only thing that masked it was
Products like a
Spotify massage.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it has like something important to disguise
I mean,
it.
nobody's good at it,
So for like
but you could.
4 years
pretty
of my
good.
life, I had to fall asleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
This is,
But then there's also
Now
Deployment,
it's not possible. Yeah, I would.
deployment,
there's also
change
Like a-
management.
orchestration, I don't know, like that's more
Are
of
you
the
talking about
automation.
us or
Yeah,
just-
and things that we do for our customers.
because they don't
Yeah.
can't use anything.
Orchestration. I don't know.
Do all of their like relevancy QA.
We do have to deploy the software on it.
So like, how do you know when somebody finds people will find these cases, they'll put it off.
The index itself.
They may not use them.
Oh, you did?
We have actually over here.
Is included
trying to set
stuff
up
on
I want to draw the,
Oh, yeah.
thing in there.
Hmm?
are you gonna draw like a,
Legal right.
Kind of space it out a little bit and like draw some lines as we go.
what are, isn't it like high value over here kind of thing, the word there?
This is
We're on the path
about
to
high,
have customers.
close to the customer's experience of value, far from it.
go along customer and
Super original, first time it's ever been done.
sharding.
It's like air, you just breathe it, you assume that it's everywhere.
Yeah, should we draw that?
Maybe. That maybe is a segue. Okay. All right, let's get back into it. Thank you for giving me a minute to prep a change of scenery. We're zooming out a little bit here. And I've got two axes. Let me just like a real quick crash course on what this is. Vertical is the proximity to the customer's experience of value. So I found the perfect pair of shoes and it's in my shopping cart. You know what I mean? Like that's up here. And the further away from that experience of value, the further down vertically we go.
Oh, wait, sorry. What's the vertical axis again?
Proximity to the consumer's experience of value.
Okay, so y-axis is.
So this is like the customer's kicking ass right here.
I get
Everything
that, but it's
down
two
here
things.
is far the things that support that.
Okay, so value is on the y-axis.
Yes.
What's the x-axis?
So like the origin would be like zero value, like this sucks. And then
The origin is distant from the customer's experience of value. They have no idea it exists.
got it.
So
At a
like,
certain point, someone's
source
got to
code rubber.
stick a plug into an electrical socket, but I don't care.
Okay. So all the steps that it takes to get the thing.
Yes.
Okay, what's the x-axis again?
The x-axis is commercial evolution. On the left, it is a thing that has never been done before, completely novel. You've just invented it. On the right, it's like air. You breathe it. You're very unhappy if you don't have it, but you generally don't think about it.
And it's free.
Oh, it's also free or just dirt cheap because it's dirt.
So okay.
Could we
What'd
flip
you-
that? Because I was thinking about like you know, as you go from left to right.
I think the way to
Let's
think
not
about this is the
restart.
further right you go, the more commoditized.
Commodity. That's the thing.
An increase in commoditization, an increase in usage, adoption,
X, Y.
expectation.
This guy.
It's not.
Where did you find it?
It's
You've
not
done
on
something
that.
now, talk to me.
It's not on
Not
that.
a great point.
Okay, so commoditization is the x-axis.
Just hold on.
Electricity is oftentimes plotted in the bottom right.
Yes. Thank you, Jared.
Why don't we,
That's
wouldn't it simplify it so it's just remove commodities and just, because those are all
That's fine.
functions we would assume.
It would not. He's gonna get into
It is.
appreciate that.
It's actually really
It's true.
important.
Feynman's principles. You
Okay.
need to dumb something down.
This is a crash course in what's called Wardley mapping. I can talk about this another time too. Drew and I got the opportunity to go to a conference with Simon Wardley and a bunch of other people a couple years back, and this is not meant to be fancy. It's really just like a little bit of structure helps you establish relationships between ideas. So there's meaning between going left and right. I mean, we could map out all these concepts and just draw arrows and make a chart if we want, but like just a little bit of extra meaning on the positions of this can be interesting, can be helpful. You can see there's a gaping blank spot over here, or like there are certain characteristics of each quadrant, for example. And so all that to say, it's just my habit now. I don't make these sorts of diagrams without laying out the X and Y like I've done here. So that's how you know what's going on. So at the very top again, experience of value is the consumer accomplishing their task. Everything else is in support of that. I guess one last thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, just rough groupings of one is Genesis, like again, the first time something has ever been done. This is PhDs doing research, hackers trying out new stuff, a completely novel query that nobody has ever typed into Google before, which apparently Google handles like 10% of their query volume every single day is a query that no one has ever before run in the history of running queries on Google. Yeah, it's a crazy high number.
10%?
It's a crazy high number. It's billions of queries per day.
Okay, sorry.
And that's a whole big challenge of a search engine. How do you build a system to answer a question that's never been asked before?
Yeah, some of them are weird questions.
Granted.
Some of the questions are strange.
So what is Genesis? Is 4 numbers?
Okay, yeah. Genesis, never been done before. Custom, something has been done a few times before. You're kind of DIYing it. You're building a thing yourself.
Nothing. It's fine.
3 is a product. It's common enough that you can pay someone else to do it for you. 4 is commodity. Like, you just, it's dirt cheap because it's dirt, or it's electricity, or it's everywhere, it's assumed. You're unhappy if you don't have it, and if you do have it, you're not even thinking about it. So we'll say that, consumer accomplishing a task is happening kind of over here. We could debate on where consumers land. We're not going to go into that right now. Their query is, kind of particular to their need. Their query is against a corpus, which is fairly custom to the business. Like, that's the unique thing that the business has to offer the world. The query is kind of captured and expressed through sort of the UI and the UX of a website. It's kind of bringing together the data in the corpus and the query. It's adding filters on your, search through Airbnb, the dates or the places you want to go. It's categories you want to search within. It is the words you write into a search box. Between the corpus and the UI, like those get sent to a search engine. That's debatable. Like, we provide a product, so you can buy that from us, but it's also more of a commodity concept as well. So like, I'm gonna move it over to the right a little bit. Presenting those results, the UI is also depends on like how you're ranking things. What you're getting out of the search engine depends on how you're matching the query. In order to do matching and ranking, you have to do analysis on the corpus. Search engine is hosted within a cluster. You really need to secure that cluster, otherwise you're going to have all the wrong kinds of press releases with your brand name in it. In order to run that cluster, it's composed of a bunch of servers, and you need some orchestration to run those servers. You have to do some deployment work to put software onto those servers. The server supports the index. The actual index lives over here, and if things completely break, you're going to want some backups. This is a very quick tour through the kinds of components that show up when we're talking about like what we do for our customers, what's involved kind of top to bottom in sort of providing for the ability to answer queries and accomplish tasks. So there's like a lot that happens below the scenes, and when our customers come to us, it's usually because they're having problems over here. There was a security breach. The thing wasn't properly secured, and now people are looking at us with a freaking magnifying glass. Yeah.
But
Black
then
box.
that's like something that a lot of people are providing. It's not something new because it's on that scale, right?
And other people, we have our own solutions to this. Other products have their own solutions to that, etc. If someone were to do their own search engine, these are things they would have to manage. We help customers choose the right types of servers, the right numbers of servers. We help to orchestrate and kind of compose these into clusters that are designed for the workload. There's a lot of skill that goes into managing all of these things. But as the proximity makes a little bit more apparent, it's kind of far away from the consumer's experience of value at the end of the day. Like, as a consumer, I don't even know what search engines the sites that I'm on are using, much less care how they're doing backups. I just want to order my pair of shoes and move on with my life, you know what I mean? Like, there's shopping to be done.
Unless it goes wrong.
Unless it goes wrong, even then I don't care what's happening over here. I just care that it went wrong, and I'm mad at your brand because you are incompetent at providing
I'm
search.
shopping elsewhere.
Exactly. I'm taking
Fair enough.
my clicks somewhere else.
I should use that. I need to use that
I'm gonna
sentence.
take my clicks elsewhere. Yes, I like that.
Oh
I'm
my
taking
God.
my clicks and going home.
You're gonna vote with your clicks.
There's nowhere.
Clicks are currency. So, we've made a business comfortably over here, is the point that I'm making. But of course, like, there's other people making businesses in here as well. Amazon has an Elasticsearch product that is very competent. Elastic has, their product that is competent-ish. And they are productizing a lot of the components around, like, the supporting of the running of the search engine, the kind of the management, the monitoring, and there's lots of other things I could throw up here on the board. And in fact, if we want to popcorn a little bit, like, what are some other things that we do that kind of differentiate us from Elastic and Amazon, or whatever, or things we want to do, or just
Support.
throw some things out there. Support. Who are we supporting? What is that an interaction looking like? What are the questions?
We're not supporting the end user. We're
Correct.
supporting the person that's trying to fill their needs.
So like a developer,
Yeah.
you do need a developer to build the UI and UX. who understands what's in the corpus, who's building the analysis in order to do proper ranking and matching so that the search engine can deliver what's happening. So there's a developer who's one of our personas. They are not close vertically to the experience of user value necessarily. Like the consumer doesn't know that developer exists. Maybe unless they're doing some surveying, which we could put, like.
I'd like to point out that I think this is a significant change in Bonsai. Bonsai 12 years ago, developer was at the very top of this thing, without a doubt.
Even before the cost, so we were focused on
Like when we were
developer
solar,
need.
right? Our customer was the developer. We were selling through Heroku. Our dashboard was all about providing access to the cluster. But over those 10 years, like our conversation now is how do we get to the user? And the developer has moved down the value chain.
More items. Support was a good one. Do we have some more? I mean, the developer is definitely high up this list for sure, but not the top.
Vault be one of the things that like separate us from
Sure.
other providers.
Yeah, that's
It's under security.
security,
part of
the
security.
servers, but
Okay,
there's also
never
like, cost management is kind of a component of.
How do you capture the differentiation of how we, like all the automation that enables those sticky paths?
Different stuff like deployment is some kind of automation, orchestration is some amount of automation. Orchestration
but you could
is
say
making.
Elastic does those 7 things, so does AWS Elasticsearch and Bonsai. But
Indeed.
there's some level of differentiation in how we do those things.
Sure.
Is that captured on a worthy map?
I mean, some of that is how we have a lot of automation, but some of that we put behind a human. So we have the capacity planning of what we're going to run for you. Like we make judgments about that. And so that's one way we.
I guess that's kind of expressing the whole like business structure of each of these.
Which is kind of a
right,
support
so
thing.
like they are their own little graphs too, with like the X and Y axis of like cost versus human.
And this
right.
goes further to the left because it's more tailored to what the business needs from their stuff, but it's still pretty far away from the consumer's experience of value.
Do we matter to a company's executive team?
Yes.
How would we get that on the board?
What are the things that execs care about?
Uptime.
Uptime,
Risk management.
risk management.
Security.
So like that stuff is actually like pretty high up because this to the point earlier is like if the thing is down, like people care a lot about it. So it's pretty close to the consumer's experience, but it's also extremely commodity. Like nobody is giving us kudos. I mean, some do because they have felt this pain, but like people again expect the searches to work. Like nobody's giving us extra credit for doing our jobs and keeping it online. It's just that like in the current space of things, this stuff can get so complex that like downtime and bad results and all that it kind of has lowered the bar for us to step over. So I put that very high up, but also very far to the right.
Where does flow fit?
We'll get to that.
There's a non-developer education component to it. Like we have stakeholders from our customers that come in that they don't know what to focus on at all. Like they're not execs, they're
Mhm.
middle management.
Mm-hmm.
They're not technical. They don't even know what questions to ask. And they
Mhm.
come to us saying like, what should I care about? My developers are telling me this, the execs tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
Like help me figure it out. They just want to hear, just want like consulting.
They wanted advice,
Yeah,
guidance.
advice, yeah. And to understand like what it is that they to be educated on it as well, not just advice.
Yeah. Yeah, advice and education.
Education is a big one. That would be interesting.
So these can support, so I mean this again is like kind of close to the support one for me. Like it's tailored to the business and the questions being asked. It's not like so commodity. If it was already commodity, you wouldn't really have to ask. Some of that stuff actually is like the concepts of search are actually kind of way over here as well. Like you just got to go read some white paper. The information's freely available. Like,
So
but you kind of have to do the work to understand it and then do the work to communicate it. And so like that's kind of what this represents.
documentation will also go close to where support
Documentation is great. Yep.
External documentation.
Docs are, they're a product. essentially you can make them free, and there's a lot of free docs on the internet, but like they're also kind of part of our product. And they support telling you how to do ranking and matching, how to design your UI and user experience, how to actually like get the value out of the system.
But again, our docs never reach the customer. Our docs are still just for the developer.
Right, the consumer.
What about like Genesis? Do we have like Azure or Flow, or does that get mapped?
Let's put some Genesis things out there.
In a different color.
Sure. Dan, help me with a few ideas on what's Genesis in the search world.
What's Genesis?
Just means
The stuff that's brand new, HSNW, or like making nearest neighbor search faster for things like personalization. So personalization, I would say, is still pretty new, honestly. Like Google's got it, but
Personalization, this is great.
yeah, that's
Pretty
really
high
affects
to the
users.
consumer experience of value because you can modify your queries in a way that like understands what you've already engaged with, what you've already searched for, your like collection of your interests. This is cutting edge research. It's supported by, pretty advanced stuff like HNSW's hierarchical navigable small world. It's a way of building an index that gives you a concept. You end up in a space and you can kind of move within that abstract space to find similar ideas. And it's a whole different way of building an index. Would it even be it's not an index per se.
It's a data structure.
It is a data structure for organizing information. That's different than the sort of term-based index that we're used to working with in Lucene. So that's over here. Pretty far away. Customers don't care that their queries are going through hierarchical navigable small world structure. They just care that they're getting personalized search results.
Do we have the capacity to apply that to our customers?
Yeah.
Are we doing that, or can we do it?
Yeah, we can. We've done vector search for people. So also just vector search, I think, in general. All these things are, instead of using search terms, like, trying to find the word shoe in the index, you're getting a giant array of numbers, a bunch of numbers, and then you're looking at all the documents and seeing how similar they are. So if you think about like a two-dimensional or a three-dimensional coordinate, you want to find the thing that's closest to something, you would look at the numbers and basically do like a subtraction of each one and say, oh, these are the exact same, so it's a direct match. And it gets really complicated on building that stuff, right? Like training models based on data to create these vectors, but so it's still pretty cutting edge, but a lot of bigger companies are researching it. And, yeah.
One that we've done with some of our customers is a technique called learning to rank. Basically, every time you're building a query, you are doing matches within a bunch of different features of a document. That's a piece of jargon we need to go through. We'll do a jargon run later on. But you're trying to influence like how much each match within a document influences the score. And so there's a bunch of like parameters. It's just a big parametric equation. And so learning to rank tunes those parameters to influence how the final thing is ordered in some very big space. So there's a specific tool called LTR, learning to rank, and there's a plugin for it, which would I guess be 3 to borderline 4, but like it's still pretty custom in how you set it up, how you use it. We've managed it for 2 customers now, or just the one?
Just one.
Yeah.
I think HBO has it installed, but they have yet to use it.
Yeah. So it's pretty custom still in how that gets used, and it's also pretty far away from like, I don't know, we kind of go up in this mess of analysis and ranking and.
Yeah. Also, just this is all under the machine learning AI kind of jargon. All these tools.
So, from what it looks like here, it seems like all the progress that we've done is kind of like moving more the UX UI developer area, but we don't have much up next to the customer.
No, yeah, we don't do UIs for customers.
Is the goal to get closer to the customer task, or I don't know, what's the goal of this?
There's no goal built into what we're doing right now. Like the goals come from understanding, talking, discussing. So strategy is what forces are at play within here. What are the pieces we have on the game board that are strong? What are the pieces on the game board that our competitors have that are strong? How do we maneuver all of that in order to do something that is successful or has a low opportunity cost on our effort?
Every one of these has a certain amount of opportunity, right? Or a certain amount
Yeah,
of demand.
I get that, and I'm feeling like, so finding something that would be in high demand, but in low commodity.
Up doesn't necessarily mean high demand, right? Like it's closer to the customer's experience and value, but there's plenty of demand for this. So Elastic makes $100 million a year on Elastic Cloud, just doing like this stuff is how I would categorize their service. Amazon probably makes more than that on their Elasticsearch service. So there's hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue on like direct competitors just kind of doing this stuff. Plenty of demand for that. Strategy is, do we want to compete head to head with Amazon Web Services?
No.
Do we want to compete head to head against Elastic? We do not. There's a play here where like the further right you go, in fact in some ways there's more demand for what's further to the right. And so like some great places to be are up here. Some examples of what's up here out in the industry, which I'll do in another color, would be.
Are you gonna do like competitors?
We'll start. This is where we're gonna start drawing boxes around is competition, positioning, and this is one of the reasons I like this diagram because we can start to draw circles around where are our competitors, where are their needs. The pattern tends to be up here. New stuff is happening, hasn't been done before, means it's kind of unique. Means we could maybe make a name for ourselves if we start to pull from the left-hand side. So it is helpful to be aware of what's going on over here. And bring that into our product kind of around here and move our product closer to the consumer. Like it's a nice, like there are valid strategies to go down here and like I'm everywhere, I'm ubiquitous, like you would, like nobody gets fired for choosing IBM. Like that's this kind of moving in this direction to the right, just like complete ubiquity, you're everywhere. You are profitable on the margins, you have great unit economics, you have a really great distribution. That doesn't play to our current strengths. Our current strengths are great relationships, domain expertise within search and this stuff, strong needs from our customers to be better resourced in these areas. And so our strategy is a very long way of kind of affirming what you were asking, like to move into this space right here, which is another reason why I'm kind of focused on a lot of sticky notes over here. Because I don't think this is what people are getting from us in support and advice and stuff that they're not getting from Elastic over here, that they're not getting from Amazon. Like you can't pay Amazon to get information about this stuff. But we're happy to, and I'm actually enthusiastic about pulling the stuff that people are doing custom in-house into some tools that would be represented as a product. So this, actually I'm gonna use green for this.
Nick, ignore me if my comment's going to be a distraction to where you're going. Algolia is another competitor somewhere on here. You know, the very top of their website is AI and personalization. So, you know, their Genesis level.
They're above, right?
But OfferUp with a KPI of 3% relevancy improvement fired Algolia, who's supposed to be like.
Algolia's thing is like you don't have to worry about any of this. All like our Elastic and Amazon are like, all right, here's some docs. You don't have to worry about any of this. So this is like Elastic Cloud is kind of all of this stuff. And AWS OpenSearch is kind of similarly positioned. These folks are this kind of race to the bottom, commodity, get millions of users, and make a buck every month off of every one of them. And a couple $1 million off of a handful of them. Right now, we're also kind of squarely in here, but we're reaching a little bit more out here. So you can put bonsai. Like we do a little bit more handholding, a little bit more customization. We're similar proximity away from the value experienced by the user. Algolia is like, we're gonna do even more, like we're gonna simplify the API, we're gonna give you fewer things to think about, we're gonna have a magical AI black box that does all this stuff for you, so we're gonna get a little bit higher up. And in some ways, we are positioning Flow to have a similar story. but maybe a little more encompassing and embracing of what's happening in here. Whereas they're kind of just like literally making a black box. We're making it more transparent.
What about Fusion?
Fusion, right, is a good one,
Similar.
is here, but even maybe a little bit more to the left.
Don't they provide a UI, Fusion?
They are kind of a mishmash of things, and I would put them maybe a little higher up.
Yeah.
But they are a lot of like machine learning. One of the important components in machine learning is like, as customers are running queries, like having query logs. It's getting a little cluttered in here, but whatever, is kind of far down, but slightly to the left. And Fusion is about a product that takes these query logs and has like different machine learning pipelines, workflows. Like, yes.
What do you think is in Genesis now for us that's going to move towards stage 2?
Yeah. So
All of it.
kind of any and all of it, like we're pragmatic. We are not necessarily deriving Genesis, like that's not where we are in the marketplace. We're not doing original research on search. We are very aware of who's doing what in that space. So we follow that stuff. We read the papers. Dan kicks the tires on things like BERT, which is Google's like super smart parser to understand queries in like a human language way.
Semantics.
The semantics of the words and ideas. But our job is to create a platform where this stuff is more accessible. So any of these are good. Personalization is good for us to be doing. Like LTR, even despite its limited usage, is still a good thing. It's just really hard to use. So what we're trying to do is we're actually really focused on this. What's in this custom category, level 2? What are the things that our customers are building for themselves in here and spending a lot of time and energy and money on, and how can we make that better for them? So that's where we are researching what our customers are doing over here to support. And like if we're drawing a line right here in our current product, what's all the stuff they're doing over here that we can make into sort of a new product?
I guess I mean, maybe it's not cutting edge in terms of the global perspective of PhDs doing search research, but what's Genesis for us? Like what are we doing to continue to add value, differentiate, change our market?
Isn't flow part of that? Flow?
Are you asking like,
Yeah, I'm not
are
sure
we
how to.
doing something that other people aren't doing?
No, but it could be 1,000 people could be doing it, but what's new to us that
That's why I was like, flow is the answer at this moment.
because Genesis isn't a global thing, right? It could be just Genesis.
No, it is. I mean, electricity is a commodity, and that's sort of globally understood. And so that's the point of putting that relative to it. So it's not like a relative map. Like Genesis is literally the first time something has been done. Like you just invented the screwdriver. Someone invented the screwdriver once upon a time. But I don't know. I'm trying to understand answer the question better, but I don't really have a different answer than what I've already said.
It's just, can we make flow not be the same color as our competitors?
It is a competitor.
Flow's a competitor to Bonsai.
It's a competitor to AWS and Fusion.
I'm feeling we're hitting short break time because we've been going for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And this is a good pause. I see people's wheels turning. I really like that. So let's take 10. Break.
Masks are becoming optional in schools in 2 weeks. It's in California.
Oh, for us, they're not required anymore. Also, the week and a half ago,
I was just listening to
Kids were very happy.
the
Yes.
daily or
It's been rough.
something like that, where like they were talking about hard data about masks.
Facial
Oh,
expression.
sure, yeah.
Schools that were masked and schools that aren't masked, like it actually does have an advantage. Which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting. It's like hard data wise.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I have like my brother, he's in Oregon right now, and they want to move back to San Diego. And they know that they're like desperate for that. But their oldest kid, when masks were mandatory in their schools, it's like a need about to be more. It was like a major so disruptive. And so they're like, we can't be back. And so if she doesn't wear a match with barriers, we have school every day. So good news for us as a family. We want
I think about it a lot for Alex daycare because his school is daycare right now. But like the kids learn a lot by watching adults' mouths. So I'm just like that. Like is he gonna have like
Like, I'm not gonna answer all the questions, but the whole point is to get people asking questions, the right questions. Pretty good hit rate on that.
hear what a lot, hear what's being said.
What else do we want to dig in here?
The CDC is gonna like change their view on something pretty quickly.
I think one benefit of kind of showing this is like where we're at, so where we want to go. So
I think it's hard because if we're making decisions based on evidence,
or at least help with that.
the pandemic is novel,
I don't.
and so our evidence.
Funny thing is, I don't think I've ever drawn one of those word maps that isn't
Like
pictured on the
just the
consent.
evidence about like.
That's where
I'm not trying to
Yeah,
defend the
ultimately
CDC. I'm just thinking about my own
The consumer didn't.
things too, because I was like, yeah, kids should definitely be vaccinated. But then all of this research came out, and I was like, okay.
It's hard. Like
well,
for me, I'm always
actually,
thinking, well,
it
the
might
customer
be-
might look at this very different.
And I think about it, and I think
So you put risk of care, and I was thinking that's here. Like, I think some customers are customers and care about it, but
Sure.
the general market is. But you have risk there, so that works.
yeah, I cut it. I like want space for that.
Totally.
To kind of us like not be so dogmatic.
Yeah.
And like have space for like what we're doing.
I think it's hard for people to constantly be updating their prior stuff.
Yes.
Doesn't really matter.
California.
General shape.
It's all part of the. All of it stems to this, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're really what you're using. It's all part of it.
Yeah, or us too, like fortunately our kids are younger. It's not a big deal, but
And yeah.
Ranking in terms of moving in terms of importance, I think that's really one of the most valuable parts of this. It's the most important one. So, like
It's better than more analysis.
it is, yeah, because the only reason you change analysis is so that you can have better
Really
rates.
subordinate to
The
the
way
UI.
this is doing
It is, yeah. Because if the UI is garbage, and they can't see the results, then the rank doesn't matter. Yeah.
so is the really
I didn't see anything
But I
in the New
don't
York
think it
Times.
matters how much we move all these things.
I think we did the job we needed to do, but that honestly, I was gonna want to dive in and go through jargon, like what's a feature, what's ranking, what's matching. I'm not sure if I want to do that. I think actually that was a pretty good session.
You can do something. You can ask these questions like, Rob, what is ranking? Patty, what is ranking?
you get it?
What's the difference between
They're
matching
going
and
to be
ranking?
drafted.
Yeah.
They think
Okay.
that they're going to.
You can ask questions like,
Well, I mean, they're doing.
So you know, there's some other questions.
It's pretty nuts, though. And that's true.
That was their approach.
That's true, but like these are different.
what kind of advice do we give our customers? You guys try.
Canadians are like share a lot of the same culture. It's just a little bit. It's not really like a lot of restrictions. You know what I mean?
Candidate sets another good piece of dirt.
is kind of a big gap here.
This is pretty much
What were you gonna
infrastructure.
say?
And this is change over time. This is engineering.
Yeah.
This is infrastructure. Right.
And this is research.
Research, engineering, infrastructure.
And this is administrative.
Yeah. I mean, technically this was written years and years ago, but like, it's just now a thing in the scene. So,
And actually, I guess it does come kind of over here. It's
Well-
just kind of far away. Because we're not making use out of it. We're not connecting it yet. Because it would be supporting, it's like a data structure. It's just that like you can't really get it as a product. You can, like very new products are starting to
Pine
emerge.
Chone has its stuff. They're starting to talk about that.
Yeah, but like at the end of the day,
And I guess this actually should be.
It's actually pretty, and that's newer.
an account
In
operation.
terms of
Well, this
supporting.
isn't new, it's novel, known. So novelty does correlate to newness.
Yes.
But like the novelty is also how is it being used.
So in that case, this
It
is.
has been invented, but are people building it into their stuff?
No, I think people aren't. This is new. Like this, in terms of.
It's in Lucene now.
Yeah, as of last.
So now it actually is kind of further to the right because Lucene's a strong commodity. So
Oh, you okay? So like that's an interesting one.
but like what are
Skip.
people doing with it
Right.
would be higher up.
Right.
And that's
And
kind
that's
of the goal of
personalization.
everything to like
Right,
come up to the right to become more adopted.
It's an interesting thought that like as soon as something's implemented for a library that everyone uses, it's like instantly commoditized.
And then you can build products that
Are new.
like this is funny pattern of
Right.
like so we have
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
this is invention, or this is like invent. This is product, like buy. This is build. This is build versus buy. Or theoretically you solve the same need. Or maybe with the benefit of building as you get closer to the experience of value. So this is
How many of those do
versus
you get
invent.
every day, man?
And it's just
It's like, I mark it
Yeah.
as
I wasn't really qualified.
now.
You're either going to build with the commodity or buy someone's product that uses the commodity. And it's like that's how those work. And when you're inventing, you want it to become the commodity
If you wanted to go there.
so that you can
But yeah, okay, so
someone else
apparently
can
they're like,
develop it, maintain it, or whatever. Like you don't want to invent it and keep it here.
Yeah,
Because
so
or you want to invent and turn it into.
have you seen Wordly maps that change like timestamps? Like, you ever seen like an animated Wordly map?
No, that would be interesting though. But some of them do consider the temporal component, and there's like there's partly an assumption that things move. There's pressure as things move from the left to right. It creates more commodities, which creates more opportunities to build and buy. So it's like there's sort of this staggered shape.
And it also is going to, and when things become commodity, it sounds kind of weird, but that could actually inspire someone to invent something impactful.
Yeah.
It's the innovation.
Yeah, that's definitely a strong part of like people's analysis on the maps is what happens as things move and what's it gonna make possible and how we kind of ratchet up. You know, one of the things that shows up in the upper right here is like servers, lambdas, functions. It's like very much closer because you're skipping so much layers of infrastructure because you're expressing like pure expressions of business logic close to what the task is on the user.
You can ignore this and this. Like, we let our customers ignore this for the most part because they do care about this, even though it's infrastructure. Like, they want to know what we're doing because it has worse costs. It's expensive, right?
well, actually, let's bring you, it's
But yeah, I like thinking
thought
of
it was
this
just
infrastructure,
I
engineering, and research.
And this is like the delay. So like the UI is kind of the borderlands between engineering and understanding the customer.
Yeah, this is the business stuff. Engineering connects the infrastructure to the user.
Glad you got some lines on there.
There's a lot of lines. You want to draw a few more?
Any other questions you think we should be talking about or answering or asking the group for phase 2 here?
Man, this is like kind of
I think we kind of.
mandatory training video for every new person is so helpful.
Yeah. I believe this kind of did the job it needed to do. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to spend the last 15, 20 minutes, kind of wrap it up.
I think, is there a plan to talk about flow in detail?
Ali was going to go through and show people all the screens that we've done, the current state of it. I don't know that I want to do it at this abstract level right now. I don't want people talking about like moving up and down this chart. I want them to see, like, I don't want them questioning the premise of how we are doing our research. I want to use like the research is being done. This is the product of it,
Yeah.
and like kind of just embrace it. I don't need
Yeah,
to
just
question the
be-
strategy of it.
Yeah.
I just want people to know how it's laid out and how we're approaching it.
We need to figure that out. That problem on the sales side right now.
Oh gosh,
I'm gonna stop
that's
getting strategy questions.
yeah. That's interesting. Like, hey, give me 90 days to put your head down and like help me make things repeatable, and then we'll talk strategy.
If you're finding yourself wanting to say you should or we should, go find a question.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask the questions.
Questions are helpful.
That's a good way to wrap this up. It's like, hey, this isn't like giving us answers. This is giving us the ability to ask questions and like understand what's come before. And like, let's remember that this isn't like we didn't just figure this out. This is 10 plus years in the making. And
Yeah, I mean, there was a day.
yeah, where orchestration was first invented.
Yeah, but bonsai did used to be novel. And the globe.
Amazon was much more of a product than a commodity.
Yeah, I'm in the.
Cloud was not was a new idea.
Yeah.
That's a good point too. To close it out, we've seen some of this transition over time.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, like, now that it's been a decade, what companies have chosen to do. As we've seen, like, you know, this grouping literally evolved over here.
Yep. I mean, and Elastic keeps inventing stuff in this area because they want to try to like capture and develop.
Yeah, how do you say expat? Like, how do you capture
I mean, it's so many
expat?
different components.
Right.
They have like graphing, they have maps, they have I don't even remember all the things that they have.
But, like, all of those things are, like, kind of maybe custom. But, like,
Well, they're
so-
products because they're selling it under a license.
Yeah.
And so they're creating this big bundled license that they're trying to push up into here. But just like bundling it all to get all this tissue.
But then, like, this thing comes along and it just keeps pushing it down to commodity, right?
Pushing it right.
Yeah, pushing it. Yeah, right.
Also, like,
Because they're open sourcing it.
Yeah, exactly.
and also some of this other stuff is going to move under these things as commodity, right? Like things want to move right.
Yeah.
And in fact, like if we're looking at research, a question for us is how do we make that commodity? Because there's value there.
How do you productize it or something?
How do you productize research? Absolutely. This is every good search org has an ability to collect surveys of what customers think of the qualitative side of the results. Like we need to build that into flow. Absolutely.
Yeah, because in like 2 or 3 years, like just shift everything down a stage, right? Or over a stage. Yeah.
Which enables all new stuff to happen in the upper level. That's the concept. All right, give me some good ideas on how to wrap. All right, folks. Let's land this plane.
Almond cookies.
I see snacks happening.
There's cookies.
Heartwarming.
With OMC logo on.
No way. What?
And they're adorable.
That's how we know we've made it.
We have cookies with our name on it.
Where did cookies with our logo on it go on this board?
Look, I also
At the
have
highest priority.
a shirt.
How's it feel?
It's super soft.
Yeah.
I think I should have bought like 3 sizes bigger.
Oh, you need bigger.
No, I mean it fits me, but it's like I like used clothing most of the time. And I have a long torso.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like I do this and then show my belly button. Not my favorite.
It's in style now.
At least you have an option though.
Crop
to do
top.
it.
Yeah, just
It's a little
You like
I
the
should
look?
have gotten
Are you still recording?
It's cute.
Yeah.
It fits you.
I
It's
know,
just
but-
shorter.
Yeah, it's alright. I have a long
Just embrace it and cut off 3 more inches.
Yeah, crop tops are in.
Yeah, I know, I do crop tops, but like short shirts is not that.
Brian,
Brian,
Is
I
it
want
too
to see
short?
your crop top.
I'll do it.
What?
It's a little short for me. I like
I
my
can make that
pants
happen.
to be a
Yeah,
little
that's good
longer.
for
Yeah, outdoor voices is a little, they crop it for sure.
All right,
But it's
we're gonna
cute.
bring this home.
Sorry.
It's 11:40. We'll wind it down a bit.
When
You know,
is the person from board coming?
for lunch.
Yes.
That's very.
So yeah, kind of like yesterday. Like this isn't necessarily we're gonna have all the answers and solve all the problems with something like this. Like we're really just starting to like lay out the landscape, and this is a tool for asking questions, as much or more so than it is for having answers. And this is, I mean, these things. We didn't just figure all this out right now. Like a lot of that happened very quickly, and a lot of what we understand in terms of our space that we operate in is the product of having done this work now for 12 years, right? And there was a time where EC2 and running servers was way further to the left. Like the cloud started over here in sort of 2008, I think, was when EC2 was launched, 2007, 2008. Solar was created in 2007. Lucene was created in 2003. And so over that time, we've seen these things like grow in their adoption and just like move to the right on this particular graph. We've seen these products get created and launched and kind of solidify what they're doing and what their premise is. But this stuff, yeah, definitely changes and evolves over time. Like, we have a pretty solid foundation where we are. We have some rough groupings here of, you know, over here is what we call infrastructure. This is just run it, keep it happy and healthy. This is evergreen stuff. In here is like engineering work, like stuff you need to do in order to get some value out of that and deliver it to the user. And up here is kind of the domain of what is the customer doing, what does the business need. And it's just really interesting to, I always want us to have that kind of holistic curiosity and awareness of all of the layers, not just like really having that myopic focus on, you know, just infrastructure or, you know, just cutting edge research. Like individually, maybe we develop kind of interest in specialties, but like I really like having these big, broad questions. I think we heard a lot of great questions in the room, like the right kinds of questions. And I mean, that's all I was kind of looking for. So I think this was like super useful and successful. And we definitely have, and I think Allie's going to show some of Flow this afternoon. We definitely have ideas on what we're drawing for here and how we're creating a product that is differentiated from kind of where we are right now. And that's going to open up some opportunities. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this was really, again, just kind of give a lay of the land and start making connections and asking questions and understanding like where we are, where customers are experiencing value from us and what they need in the future. Because all this comes down to like, what do our customers need and what do their consumers need that are driving what they're doing. So anything else I should touch on before I wrap that?
And that's gonna always change.
Always changing. That's a thing, for sure, yeah. And that's a nice benefit of being a small and agile team is like being able to respond to change can be an unfair advantage. Like that is the classic business school 101, like how a small company competes with massive multi-billion-dollar companies, which are among our competitors. So it's always being responsive to what the consumers need and what the businesses need that are building to meet those.
That only happens if our team is like resourceful and aligned with like where we're going though.
Bonus points. Nobody likes a teacher's pet,
true,
Allie.
though. But it's so true. Like that's a part of a risk of our business that we need to be aware of is like how we're talking to one another, how we cross those lines of like teams and how we manage that. If we can do that well together with our values, then we can act in this space in a really amazing way. But if there's infighting or like non-alignment within the team, like it's just gonna be really hard.
But we continue to put focus and try to continue to put focus.
Pardon?
We want to continue to put focus in our specialization, in our like support, in our how we
Thank you.
allow our customers to continue to do well. We have no intention of moving closer to what like AWS is.
Sure. I mean,
Correct. Like value aligned, we're
Exactly.
more value aligned up there.
Yep.
With no interest on scooching back down.
Partly because it's just a completely different ballgame to operate at that scale, and
You need a lot of money.
Amazon will crush us if we try to be the race to the bottom, commodity adopted everywhere type of service.
Just look at how much like effort those two companies have spent against each other in the last couple of years. Like,
Yeah. So like for
That's
us
hard.
to continue to survive and thrive in this environment, logically it makes more sense for us to focus on those higher level kind of things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Higher.
Imagine the case where we commodify things like helping the developers or something like that. We can push things into the category of commodities.
That
but
way.
That may be the place where we set ourselves apart. They all fight over something like infrastructure, and we turn, this thing that is decidedly not infrastructure into infrastructure. That's where that's like we jump off.
Yeah, that's the play of
Exactly.
understanding what all of our customers are doing outside of the infrastructure and turning that into something they can pay for. So like they're spending effort and time to do things here because consumers need it and the businesses have goals for it. How do we take that and build something that they can solve those problems with, paying us instead and using our tools? Like that's the current plan, the current strategy. A lot of that is informed by like, hey, we've discovered search is super interesting. I mean, there was a time when One More Cloud comes from the idea that we were going to build multiple different types. We were really going to leverage the orchestration and the servers and the deployments and build lots of different types of databases and host them. Other companies have gone on to do that and do well with that strategy. But we kind of discovered that like, hey, search is super interesting. Like how this ties into what people are doing with software in the world. Like, I've always found that to be a very compelling problem, a lot more compelling than working on the low-level details of orchestration. Like, we've got enough fundamentals there that we can do that well. But if someone came to us and gave us a no-cost replacement for all the orchestration and deployment stuff that we do, we would take it in a heartbeat because we want to spend our time up here. Now, I still think we have really good and unique orchestration and deployment type tools. I have yet to see a true replacement for what we're doing there, but that's another good way of looking at where is our vision, where's our mission. It's kind of up here. It's not keep doing this at all costs. So
We have to keep doing that at all costs though.
well,
Because
yes.
if not, there's nothing else.
If the premise there was if there's an alternative, we would take it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Makes sense.
So, all right, well that's good. Hi Sarah, welcome. Pop quiz to close it out, or just end it up? I think we're good. I think we really hit all the points we needed to here. And I'm going to scratch my Wordly Maps presentation off the suggestions since we basically just did that.
Yeah.
All right, well,
So this afternoon there's a flow presentation?
That's right. After
Yep.
lunch.
well, right after lunch we're doing our risk assessment.
That's right.
Um,
I don't know.
we could also split that up, and we can keep that small and let folks do flow if they prefer. This is not a
It depends on.
I'm getting some head nodding, so we'll probably just have a smaller group to do the risk assessment meeting, and then Allie can hook into the display and the gorgeous conference table to show off progress on flow.
Maybe Bug
Up till
might
12:30.
already.
Okay,
So, but it's very close.
great.
So we'll be a little bit tardy.
All right.
Okay, just me first.
Thank you
I
all.
know, I'm like, ew.
I was just kidding, Brian.
Not good.